Hey, everybody, welcome to the Cowboy Perspective. I love saying this early on, and I've been trying to hustle and put this together because I've got Curtis Stahnke, Mr. Stahnke, most well known to me as an elementary principal. But I've already found out there's a lot more to this guy that I'm not aware of, and maybe you aren't either. So we're going to talk about those things. You'll see, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the picture of a longhorn steer here kind of in between us. That's some of his work. So we're going to talk photography, probably thought processes around raising young kids, or what it's like to have that much influence in their lives. Where'd you come from? Like, just all these things. Like,
Yep.
How do you actually spell Stahnke?
Right? I don't know if I have that figured out yet.
So many people, I always have a hard time with it. There's an H in there. I forget where it goes.
Well, when you have a name like that, you just get used to it being mispronounced and misspelled.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so first things first. Where'd you come from? Who are you? I don't even know. All I know is Principal Stahnke.
Well, I've got roots in this area. I actually grew up in Stephenville. My dad was a professor at Tarleton in the ag school over there for a long time, but my mom graduated from Comanche High School back in the 50s, and my dad went to school at Pretty and Indian Gap in Pottsville and graduated high school in Pottsville, Texas, over in Hamilton County.
The metropolis.
The big city. So got ties here and moved to this area back in the 80s, so I've been here for a long time.
Okay, so when you came back, or where'd you go to school? So,
got my bachelor's degree at Tarleton State in animal science, and I decided I hadn't had enough college, and so I went to New Mexico State and got a master's degree in animal science, reproductive physiology. And, of course, by the implication of the name, lots of science classes, so one thing led to another, and I ended up making a science teacher.
all
And
right.
that's how I got into public education.
Okay, good deal. Where'd you start teaching first? Or let's just kind of paint that timeline. So now you've gone to school and you're trained up in the ways, let's say.
Yeah.
What'd you do next?
Well, when I got out of school, at that time, I discovered when I was in grad school that I kind of liked teaching because I had some teaching assignments. I taught labs for some of the professors there at New Mexico State. I thought, kind of put that on the back burner. And my degrees were in agriculture, so I did that kind of work for several years and decided that I do think I want to pursue that teaching. And I was living in New Mexico at the time, working on a ranch in Otero County, and kind of south of Cloudcroft, up in the mountains there in the Lincoln National Forest. And so I decided to come back home, come back to Texas, moved to my grandparents' farm here in Comanche County, and went back to school again at Tarleton for a year and got my teacher certification. And my first job was in the big city of Iredell, Texas, over in Bosque County.
And that was teaching science?
Teaching science. I was the science teacher. I taught grades 7 through 12.
There you go.
There at
That's what I
Iredell.
was fixing to ask. You ended up being an elementary principal. There's
Yes.
probably quite a bit of journey to that place.
There is.
And so you started out with, what do you call, like 7th and up? That's what, I don't know what you call it in education, but it's like secondary school or something like that.
Right. My certification, my original certification in science, allowed me to teach 6th grade through 12th grade science, any subject that there was. And that's that and math are pretty in-demand certifications.
Yeah.
And, a small school like Iredell or locally Sydney and Pretty, that's a very desirable certification because one person can be your science department. And so that's what I did. And then I somehow decided to go all the way from teaching high school and junior high all the way down to 3rd grade. And that's how I wound up I was already living here, but teaching in the Comanche public schools as I taught 3rd grade science for 5 years.
Okay. This just begs the question, where does this competitiveness, what I call it, there's some competitive nature in you. I swear there has to be for
Well-
you to kind of go on to be principal and then to attack really photography, bike riding. These are all things we'll touch on along the way, I'm sure. But where does that come from?
Well, part of that just comes from my enjoyment of the outdoors, whether it's photography or riding bicycles, things like that. And then in the school business, I feel strongly that all of us should be a positive contributor to society. And so at first I thought that was going to be growing food, agriculture, because that's very important, and I still feel that way. But education, as I'd said previously, it just kind of was in the back of my mind after my years in grad school, and I thought, that is something that I can do. It's valuable to society. I can have a pretty good job and live in a small town and make a living, and that can be hard to do in a town like Comanche. And so all of that in the mix, but just being a positive contributor, and that kind of drove me to where I am today.
Yeah. Yeehaw. Everybody, roll that back just a little bit and listen for the word positive contributor, because I think we all, and even me, I will get in this mode of competitiveness of I need to do the next big thing. I need to beat whoever that was. No, I don't. I need to be a positive contributor.
Yeah.
And we all have that in front of us, that opportunity, if we'll allow it. If we don't think the greatness we are is less than it truly is.
Yep.
And that's what
I
this
agree.
podcast is all about.
Yep.
There's so much greatness in every person. I mean, and people say, well, who are you getting on the podcast? I said, I'm getting anybody that will come, anybody that will spend some time with me and tell their story, because there's so much greatness in that. I
Yep.
mean, yours is obvious to me, with having such an influence on our young kids, my daughters in particular. That's one reason it's so important to me, because you've affected my family, my kids. Which that can sound a bit diminishing. Well, I'll just interview anybody. Well, because just anybody has great something to add.
You don't have to be famous to be, I don't want to use the word important. That sounds kind of self-serving, but to be that positive contributor,
That's
I guess
right.
that's the
You
best
bet.
I'm coming up with right now.
No, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've been teaching third grade in Comanche. Did somebody see something in you and say, hey, it'd be a good idea for you to be a principal? How'd that work?
There were 2 or 3 different people when I was still in the classroom that said, because I'd kind of just I don't know that I sought it out, but had picked up some leadership roles as a classroom teacher. And I had a few different people suggest to me that maybe I needed to take a look at being a principal. Mr. Kelly, who was a principal here at one time, Vicki Cavett, who worked for the school district at one time, and Rick Howard, who was our superintendent for a long time. So they all talked to me about things, and especially Mr. Howard. One of the things I talked to him about is my reluctance to leave the classroom is that direct, for lack of a better term, hands-on with the kids. And his comment to me was, well, look at how you can magnify your impact if you're a principal versus you've got a limited number of kids. And so that helped me and gave me a different perspective and something to think about, and made sense. And so I headed down that road, and the district gave me some opportunities while I was still in the classroom to lead some programs after school. For example, when I was still teaching third grade, I would go over to the junior high at 3:30, and I was in charge of the after school program over there. And so that's how it all started for me here.
There's just so much good there. Hey, everybody, if you see something in somebody, tell them, encourage them. I'm not 100% sure Mr. Stahnke would be sitting here and have that tenure as a principal without some people seeing something in you and saying it. Hey, you should think about it.
Yeah, I think most of us need that. If we could go back in time to when I was working on my bachelor's degree in animal production, animal science, and somebody said, someday you're going to be an elementary principal, I would have just laughed at them.
Right.
And yet here I am. And am pleased to have been so.
Yeah, sure. I'm similar. I think if you get 10 people in a room and ask them that similar question, like if you had been told this is what you would have ended up having a career in, they would have probably all said, no, I'd have laughed.
Yep.
I wouldn't have, nobody could have told me I'd be a bacon salesman or a podcaster.
Yep.
Really?
Well, of course, I've been around a while now, but one of the things I've learned is life brings a lot of surprises to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of things we think will be this way aren't, or don't turn out that way for us. And some things we want pretty badly don't work out. Mm-hmm. But life is interesting.
That's right. Makes me want to ask, you've been in the trenches of really seeing people from lots of different demographics, kids, families, from lots of demographics. How did you frame that? I mean, I'm just thinking, well, I know there's some kids that come from really just hard homes. Some come from affluent homes, but they're hard too. I mean, there's really no easy home to come from.
Yeah.
How do you think about that? How do you help those kids be the best they can be, or do you think that's part of what you should do or have to do?
I do. You look at the obvious things that we do in education. That's teaching the subjects that we're required to teach, and of course those are important. But we're not dealing with machines. We're dealing with people, and that come from various good circumstances, bad circumstances. And so I try to help them see the possibilities. For me, a school is a metaphor for a door that's open, and that door for me was always called opportunity.
Yeah.
And sometimes the kid closes that door. Life circumstances close that door. But my goal has always been, let's make sure that as a school, we didn't close the door on that child.
Yeah.
We give them that opportunity. And so I just try to teach them in many, many different ways. But it all is just like we adults. It's all based on relationships. You have to build that relationship first before you can do anything else.
Yeah. I've not found one person that doesn't think life is not. How am I wording this correctly? I've not met anybody that doesn't think it's all about relationships. Yeah. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships.
Well, sometimes let's say that I've got a 5th grade boy in my office, and he's been a rascal that day, and I need to bring about some change in that behavior. I am far more likely to be able to do that successfully and get that child back in the classroom learning if I previously have built a good relationship. So and that's just one example. It doesn't have to be something negative like that. It can be for a lot of reasons. And sometimes, just like in our personal lives, we have to work on those relationships because sometimes we have to be able to lean on it.
You're talking about a thing I've heard called, I was about to say but I've heard it called, and I believe in it, leadership capital. Yeah. You've built some leadership capital in your life, and that's with your wife, that's with these kids, that's with the teachers you're working with, that's with the staff,
parents,
all of those places, folks. You got to think about it as every time you get a chance to bank a little leadership capital, you got to do that because you may have to lean on it.
Sometimes you got to make some withdrawals.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you go in the negative, you have a problem. Just like if I spend too much and I can't pay my bills, you have a problem.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. I hope people hear that and just think about it. And it's hard to tell you exactly how to build. It's not building or putting leadership capital in the bank is not like a black and white thing either. No. It's different for every person, every situation. It's really be a servant, I think, in my mind, is the best way to build that relationship.
Well, there's a term, servant leadership. You know, there's books that have used those terms too. So, it's important. It can sound like, that's too simplistic. Well, it's not simplistic, but really the basic premise of it is relationships.
Yeah.
Now, the details are tough.
Yeah, sure. Well, a simple thing you do, and I think it could apply in business. I've applied it in my team building structures, and that is meet them at the front door and open the car door.
Yep.
It's, I don't know. They don't do that at every campus, only at the elementary. Now, I'm talking about Comanche, Texas in particular, and I don't know everything about everything. Right. But I do know I've only seen it on one campus.
I'm a big believer in how we get the day started has a major impact on how the day goes. And a lot of our kids, not a lot I shouldn't say, but a fair amount of our kids, their days start off pretty rough at home. I can see it on their face when they get out of the car.
My kids do.
It's just part of life sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
But some of them have it every day. I'm not talking about just that day and we woke up late. Hurry, guys, and just the the stress or tension that comes with that. But just it's kind of a day in, day out part of their life. And if I can turn that around some, if that child has a better day, they're going to learn better, and that's important. But what I've always try to tell every child that I see in the mornings when they're coming in is, I'm glad you're here today.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're not faking that. No. Like, it's a genuine truth. Yep. That's the other thing about this leadership capital thing we're talking about. It can't be faked.
No.
It's got to be a real deal.
If you're putting on a show or you're trying to manipulate people, they figure that out in about 3 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and they might, let's say they're just really brand new and you fool them early on. Mm-hmm. When they do figure it out, you're done.
Yep.
That bank account's closed.
It's over.
So you never want to start out fooling anybody. You just got to learn. And it's like, we're not talking about a thing that's like, oh, just start today. You have to learn it. You have to build it over time. It has to be a part of just who you are.
Well, it's like anything in life. You can learn about it, but it takes a lot of experience. It takes a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
So, and I've made more than my share.
Sure. I think that's going to be true with anybody that's trying.
Yeah. Well, in the job that I've done, sometimes the reality is you deal with people that are mad or you deal with people that are upset because we're not talking about a commodity. We're talking about people's children. And sometimes otherwise good people just can't be fully rational about their kid, and that's okay. It used to really bother me when I think everybody goes through these stages when they deal with the public or deal with people, and I learned though it's not about me. It's just that's their child, that's their treasure, and so if I can do, as long as they're not threatening me, that kind of thing, if I can preserve that relationship, it's better for everybody.
Yeah.
So.
That's so true. I mean, we're talking about elementary kids and parents, but that's just true in business, church, family, everything you can think about. This stuff applies.
It just gets away from people sometimes, and I've gotten a lot better over the years.
You said it really well. It's not about me.
Yeah.
And the truth is, as humans, we have this little, I don't know if it's a flaw, but it's a little truth.
Yeah.
We think everything's about us, almost always. Me, my kids, everybody. Well, it's about me. No, it's not about you.
Yeah.
And if you'll understand the way you're feeling about it being about you is how they feel too, then it just gives you another lens to see this life through.
Life is interesting. People are interesting.
Oh, and I wanted to go back to this little opening the door for the kids in the car, and that's not easy. Like, it's not just like Mr. Stahnke decided one day, we're just all going to do this, and we're all going to love getting here an extra hour early or 30 minutes, whatever it is, and standing out here in the rain and the cold. That's not easy. Like, if it was easy, it wouldn't be valuable. Nobody would care. He's not doing anything that matters much.
Yeah.
But I know those teachers that stand out there with you, they don't want to do that every day. Right. They've got other pressures. The man at the school has things to get done. It'd be much easier to just go in there and get to work.
Yep.
Instead, you prioritize this thing. That's hard. That's just a high five and an illustration for everybody to see. Look, if you're driving down this by Comanche Elementary and you see some teachers out there letting kids out, and now we're sending our high school athletes over to do it. That's a
Yes.
great example for them.
Yep.
There's just so much. Such a small thing.
Yep.
It's like so much greatness
Didn't
in
cost
this
you any
very
money.
small thing.
It's an investment in people, and
Yep.
it pays off, and it's a lot of fun sometimes. Of course, there's days it's like, oh my gosh, what time is it? I'm cold, or
Yeah,
I'm hot, or
that's right.
whatever it might be.
I know I got a meeting I've got to be prepared for. I know I've got a stressful conversation with a teacher coming up.
Yes.
Any of these things.
Yep.
And nope, you still just get out there and do it. So
Got to do it.
that's the stuff that I think everybody just needs to find in whatever you do. I don't care if it's running a ranch, janitor at the corporate office,
Yep.
CEO of Microsoft. Like every single person in every role can think about doing stuff like that. Have you got any really fun? I know you got some stories. Do you have any right on the front of your mind, tip of your tongue from your tenure as principal that are just would or just little Easter eggs maybe for somebody listening that, oh, I know who he's talking about. That was a crazy day.
One that comes to mind, and teachers know me. I laugh at stuff sometimes when I shouldn't, that the kids do.
Yeah.
So I tell them, I said, all right, if you're going to bring this child in, you come in by yourself first and tell me what happened, because you know me, I'm going to laugh, and that's not exactly good in a discipline situation. Right. So I've had a lot of those over the years. I had a teacher bring a child in, and he had drawn and written and said some things that he shouldn't have done. Well, she didn't do that. She just plopped that down in front of me on my desk. It's like, oh gosh. I started laughing. She said, I knew that's what you'd do. And then she was mad at me, grabbed the paper, grabbed the kid, and out the door she went. And that was, I never dealt with it. So that was pretty good. And then one that happened, maybe just one of the funniest of all, a child was in kindergarten, and he had been dared to do something in the boys' bathroom. Of course, kindergarten, well, all the way through elementary, the boys' bathroom is where all the action is.
Yeah,
and,
right.
you know, some of the stuff is like, oh my gosh. We could have a podcast on bathroom discipline and funny stuff that I've seen and dealt with. But this kid had done something that he'd been dared to. And he said, but Mr. Stahnke, and he's sitting there at my desk, and he's a very serious and a good, well-mannered child. He said, Mr. Stahnke, he said, if they double dog dare you, you can do it. But they triple dog dared me. I had to. Yeah. He didn't have it like in the movie. He didn't have a choice. It was a triple dog dare. Yeah, so right. I sat there and I thought, okay. So I stood up and I said, you stay right there. And I walked out of my office and laughed out in the front. And then came back in. I call it my principal face. Right. And came back in with my principal face. But yeah, I posted that on Facebook, and of course I didn't put any names or anything. Yeah. And the parent recognized it immediately and knew it was their child and outed the child on Facebook, and everybody got a good laugh out of it. But there's a lot of things like that. I could go on and on and on.
I guess I got to tell one on myself. I got licks, which I don't even know if they give licks. And like some people listening aren't even going to know what licks are, yeah. Right? But which is swats with a paddle.
Yep.
Twice in my school career. Once in kindergarten, once as a senior.
Oh, there's a little spread there.
There's a little spread there. And mine was, my kindergarten was turning the lights off in the girls' bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the big thing.
That's a lot of fun.
And 2 or 3 people had got away with it before me, and I'm kind of looking around like, yep, this is no problem. Well, right when I go, here comes the teacher out of there. She had been in there for all the light flickering. Anyways, I never got a lick I didn't earn, so I'm not griping about it. It's just kind of funny. Then as a senior, I'd been told to quit cutting in line, which was just a bully move. I've been cutting in the lunch line. Well, I didn't listen, so I got what I earned. And it was totally...
I meant what I said.
Yeah, that's right. I said don't do that again. You did it, so... It's not like there was any miscommunication here.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
Come on in here to the office.
Have a little visit. Yeah, I've had some meetings like that too.
But don't you think that's a trick in life? Is setting a boundary
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
just consistently holding it.
And that is key. That is key. And
Why does that seem hard to
it
do?
it is just, the word I want to use is deadly. Obviously, it isn't deadly, but if you tell a child you better not, if you do this, then this is going to happen, and you don't follow through, well, here we go.
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw me with kids at school. They're not afraid of me. I don't never wanted kids to be afraid of me. I did want them to know I meant what I said.
Yeah.
And that's the way I did
that's,
things.
to me, called respect.
Yeah.
I need their respect.
Yeah.
And I love my dad, but he has my respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's most of the people I love the most have my respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, we had a group of fifth grade boys this year. Good kids, loved every one of them. But if you didn't keep an eye on them at all times, things were getting out of control in a hurry.
yeah.
And a common thing that about 4 of them would hear from me is, I meant what I said. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what we're going to do. Yeah. And it didn't, obviously, the way I'm describing this, it did not 100% prevent them from
Sure.
being interesting, but it helped a lot.
Well, yeah, they can't help it. I'm the same way. Anybody who's just willing to push the envelope,
Yeah.
they're going to come back every so often and test it.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, last time he got me, but I wonder if he's still serious.
Yep.
Oh, yep, still serious.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they just want to test it.
I'm a big believer in natural consequences. And so, we talked about it a little bit before, but boys in bathrooms. It's like, guys, I've told you, you mess up the bathroom, you're cleaning it.
Yeah.
So let me go get you some supplies and let's get busy.
Yeah.
And they're like, he did mean it. Well, yeah, I meant it last time too, guys.
Yeah, you forgot the last 6 months ago when he did that, or in 4th grade. That's great too. I think those natural consequences, like I'm talking about
Yes.
getting licks, which that worked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it stung.
Yep.
It puts a memory in your mind that doesn't fade easily.
Yep.
So I don't necessarily not believe in that. I think it worked well for me. But that natural consequences is great.
Yep.
Me and my brother were spitting on each other once. Guess what? Dad got us out on the side of the road and made us spit in each other's face. We never did that again.
I bet
That
not.
was a natural consequence
Yeah.
that just really
Mm-hmm.
works.
Well, it does. It is. It's like anything. It isn't perfect, but it's easy for that child to see that connection. Well, I did this, and this is what happened, and they go together. It makes sense. It's not just something arbitrary.
Well, and it teaches them. When I do that, if I'm not cleaning this up, somebody has to do with the work that I had to do, and that wasn't much fun, and that's kind of not fair to them,
Yeah.
those kind of things.
We had one, this was several years ago, some boys, it wasn't funny at all. They absolutely destroyed the bathroom, and it was an ugly mess in there. And it had been going on for a while, and I had pulled all the boys out of class and had a talk with them. And I said, guys, you think this is pretty funny? I said, but I'm going to catch you eventually. I'm giving you this very stern warning. So if it happens again after today, I'm really going to be pretty unhappy. And they did it again, and I caught them. Well, they got to spend that bathroom, probably the last time it was that clean was when it was brand new.
Yeah.
They cleaned it, and they cleaned it, and they cleaned
Toothbrushes
it,
on
and
the
they
grout
cleaned
and
it.
everything.
And they never did it again.
Yeah.
So
I'm sitting here thinking how much of a detective you have to be too.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not just truth spewing from those mouths when
Yep.
you get them
Yep.
under
No.
pressure.
no, no.
There's a lot of detective work to be done.
We have video cameras now, and that helps. But kids are so funny here about. It's one that is graduated from high school this year. I had him looking at the camera, looking. He's like, "That's not me." Who is it then?
Yeah.
I'm showing him on my computer monitor. You did it. This is you. That's not me.
So, how do you do that?
Every now and then you'll run into a kid. Absolutely, no matter even that
They
kind
get
of evidence.
on that story. They're sticking with
it.
it.
Wasn't me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you got to almost admire them a little bit for how hard they'll just stick to it.
It's like,
Well, too bad you're taking the consequence.
well, kids are fun. It's always interesting.
Oh, that's all so much fun. I just want to keep talking about that because I enjoy it. It's fun. Like, that's part of what I enjoy about the podcast.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm just smiling, laughing. There's so much just good life in laughter.
Yeah, yeah.
You're kind of a guy I know likes to laugh. You're just talking about it. How much leadership capital can you build when you find ways to help others laugh?
It's critical because the more stressful a job situation is, that takes a toll. And people that work with me through the years have heard me use the term, you used capital. I call it emotional capital.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I get a paycheck every month, and it's only so much. And I have to be able to make that last that whole month. And I can go over that. I can use my credit card and then pay it off maybe or whatever. But if you keep that up, it's going to catch up with you financially. Well, that emotional capital is the same way. So we have to invest in ourselves. We have to invest in people. We have to keep putting into that account. And laughter. Laughter is like putting $1 million check in somebody's account. One good dose of laughter can help a really tough day or week or even month and help people get through it. So it's important.
Yeah.
It's important. People that work with me know I act pretty silly sometimes. Well, there's a method to my madness. I do enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy a good laugh. But there's a method to my madness, too.
If you had to guess, what percentage of people like you and what percentage of people you never were able to make that deposit with, I mean, because I think that's something people got to understand.
Mm-hmm. There's a rule of thumb that I've learned in the past, and I think it's pretty accurate. 20% of your people are going to be with you no matter what. 20% of your people are going to be against you pretty much no matter what. And it's that 60% in the middle that you can sway. And so if you do a good job, you're going to have about 80% of people with you and liking you. And that's kind of what I have found to be true.
Yep. And then you live in the community of the people that you're dealing with, their kids. I mean, that's just all tough stuff. Like most of the people I'm doing business with, they don't see me at the ball fields. They don't see me doing anything. So when I act like an idiot at the ball field, nobody thinks, well, that's not exactly how I picture that guy. Yeah. But there's still a lot of value and understanding. You just kind of got to be thinking about that capital all the time, whether you're at the CYC field or in some board meeting.
I've always felt compelled to remember my role in this community. And I don't try to present myself as something that I'm not. I don't do that. But no matter if I'm at the grocery store or, every kid knows where I live. So if they're driving by and they're seeing me, if I do something bad, I have really failed as a leader. And again, I'm not trying to act like I'm something that I'm not. But it's my job to set a good example for people. So
yeah, they'll do a lot more based on what they see than what. And I fail
sometimes, but still, even now that I'm recently retired, my wife and I were talking about this just a day or two ago, and of course, she's an encourager and also a reminder sometimes. And she said, "You still have to keep in mind that you influence these kids in this community." You're right.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they don't just cut it off just because I retired as far as, and I don't want them to, but that relationship and how they see me. And
I interviewed James Wilson for the podcast, and he was my elementary principal, and I have so many fond memories. He set an example in my mind that will never leave, and he's still at 92, sharp as a tack, super fun to talk to, super influential. Like, he won't even give himself the credit for the amount of influence
he has been an encourager for me. He doesn't owe me anything, but anytime I see him, he wants to know how it's going at school, and he says things to me that boost me up, and just he's living that example.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I think that's the kind of guy you'll be too.
Well,
So
I hope so.
I know there'll be, I don't know who it is, some 20 years from now or something, some guy that you were his principal is going to be like, I got to interview Mr. Stahnke, and man, he's just like he always was. He's such a good person, such a example of parts of myself I want to magnify.
Well, one of the fun things, and you don't have to be a principal to experience this, but that I enjoy is having been here in this small community, in the same school for a long time, is those deep connections that you have with people. And I'm at that point now, and have been for quite a while, where I've got children of children that I taught or I had in the school. And I guess one of the things I enjoy the most is when grown men walk up and hug me.
Yeah.
That is, that's a payoff, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. Well, that puts a little lump in my throat just talking about it. It's an illustration of the sweetness that can be and will be and is possible in life.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. I was thinking, we got to talk about Bunny a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, so she's your partner in crime.
She is.
Well, I guess crime might be a bad analogy.
She's the good part of that. I'm the shaky part.
Yeah, of that. There you go. Right. But tell us all how valuable it is to have a teammate, a partner in life that likes the same stuff you like. I mean, I'm just guessing here, but I feel like I'm making a pretty good bet. Y'all enjoy a lot of the same stuff.
We do. Almost anything you could name we enjoy, whether it's just around the house, doing projects around the house, yard work, travel. Like, we spent a good bit of time yesterday. We're going to Scotland this summer, and so kind of wrapping up the final details of that, making some plans. And most of our free time when we're doing things for enjoyment is based on something that's being done outside.
Yeah.
And whether it's riding bicycles or backpacking or canoeing, our honeymoon was your standard 8-day canoe trip down the Rio Grande.
Yeah, there you go.
So, she's a delight, and she's kind of a, I guess the term might be anchor for me. Sometimes she reminds me of those things that are important that maybe I'm overlooking, moral things.
Or just, I mean, in a stressful kind of leadership job, that anchor, somebody to say the thing you don't want to hear.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to hear that right now. I'm mad, or frustrated or sad, whatever that emotion is that's kind of ruling your thought process. Having that person that can just say, man, you're not really acting like yourself right now.
And you're right. It's like, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, right.
And I've gotten where I try not to say something like that, but it's like, well, dadgummit. Yeah. Especially when it hits you right there, and what they just said is
100% right.
It's like,
yeah, that's right. Oh my goodness, we all have that truth, don't we?
Oh yeah.
All right, so we talked about bike riding, canoeing, this picture on the wall. You said, well, I could nerd out pretty quick on that. When did you start taking pictures or caring about?
Started when I was 17.
Wow. You know specifically.
I do, and the reason I do is my mom bought me a Pentax 35mm film camera for my 17th birthday.
There we go.
And I still have it.
Cool.
It doesn't work anymore because on a backpacking trip it got whacked up against a rock, and
I bet that was a heartbreaker.
It was. I didn't know it will snap a picture, but it bent the body a little bit, and so it's got a light leak. And so I got home, and all the pictures were ruined, and And then I I remembered I had it, and I took my backpack off, and I accidentally slammed it against a rock, and sure enough, that body was bent a little bit. So now it just sits on the shelf.
Right.
That's where it started, and kind of was away from it for a long time, and then started back about 20 years ago with digital. And
yeah, that's a big change.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a good creative outlet for me, and sometimes pretty meaningful, and things like that right there. One, that trip was a good memory. That was a birthday trip for Bunny, and we were staying at some little stone cabins out in Presidio County. But there he was, and he needed his picture taken. So,
yeah. How long does it take to set up for a picture like that? Or is that just kind of a spur of the moment thing?
That was spur of the moment.
I got to believe he's not going to stay exactly like that.
You have to be ready. And so typically what I do is I try to be ready all the time for a photograph. And so what that means for me in my pickup is that middle headrest in the front seat, my camera is there and it's ready to go. And as far as I can guess, the settings that I'm most likely to need are already set. And so I can quickly respond. So there he was, and with those mountains and that sky and so on, I knew, and I stopped.
Yeah,
and
let's get this picture.
Yep. He just had a look about him that, to me, that just says Texas.
Yeah.
And I had to try to capture that.
Well, it does to me too. I think you might have posted it on Facebook or something.
Probably.
And I'm like, man, that'd be cool to be hanging. That'd be a cool picture to kind of blow up and hang in the Cowboy Perspective studio. So, and I see this, and so I'm seeing the steer missing half an ear. Mm-hmm. There's a story there. Mm-hmm. Probably has a brand on him. Like there's a lot of stories in this animal's journey, just as much as there is in the picture and the guy who took it.
Well, it's like you got that background, so you notice things, and me too. So I thought, golly, that's quite an ear crop. Yeah. Sometimes ranchers will crop a bit of an ear or ear mark or whatever, but and I thought, well, maybe a coyote, but I don't know. It's kind of straight, so I don't know.
That's right. Or was it cold or something when he was born, and he just managed to keep one ear warm and not the other? Anyways, there's lots of, that's part of kind of what art is too, is this thing that gets you maybe dreaming of the story. Yeah,
it gets you to thinking, and maybe brings you into that moment. And again, people that have that experience, I see that rough country, and I see those horns with scratches all over, and he's plowed through a lot of brush. Yeah. Pretty tough old guy.
Yeah. Anyways, if you're just listening on audio, you should just jump over to YouTube and check that out. Just to see the picture. I'll probably have to get a still shot or something and add it. But anyways, it's a cool picture. Yeah. Thanks for Mr. Stahnke. Didn't even charge me $1 million to buy the print, so I really do appreciate it.
Well, I have a website that I've not published because I'm not happy with it yet. But through the years, I've had a number of photos that people like you like that one, and they want to pay me, and I just send them a file. And say enjoy it.
Well, that's your work. I've heard somebody say one time Picasso painted this portrait of this lady and said, well, that'll be $10,000. And she said, well, it only took you about 3 minutes. He said, well, it took me a lifetime, actually, to be able to do that in 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. So the value of it doesn't go unnoticed in my mind.
Well, yeah, it's I guess like anybody that's trying to do anything creative, when you look at your early efforts versus your current efforts, it's like, oh my gosh, I was horrible back then. Well, probably in 10 years, I'll say I was horrible 10 years ago.
That's right.
And it should be that way, really.
There's no finish line.
Right.
Like you're always finding, or there's technology coming along you're able to use. Yeah. By the way, what do you think about AI?
And I use AI.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So let's just talk about that a bit.
Okay.
Could AI replicate that? Maybe. I don't know.
It probably could.
Yeah.
Now. But I'm not afraid of it. It's in the software that I use already, and it does neat things. I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's like anything. There are some potential problems with it, I think, but mostly what you read on the news is what I call scaremongering. It's under our control. We get to decide what to do with it. Now, we humans, we make bad choices sometimes, and so I do think the potential is there for bad. There's some, I guess, some cheating that's going on and so on and so forth. And if I were, say, trying to make a living from photography, and I do something really nice through the skill of my eye, and somebody else simply does it through AI and, say, gets a job that I don't, I would be unhappy about that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
There's really no way to stop it.
No.
I guess you could fight against it, but I kind of think the current's going that way. Let me learn so I can be a part of the current rather than just a rock always fighting against it.
Yeah.
And anyways, it's a very interesting truth about the world. You got to imagine when the internet came out, people were just like, we're dead.
Yep.
It's all over.
Gloom and doom. Again, I've been around a while. And so and you probably remember too, when the internet first became, all of a sudden, it seemed like all of a sudden, it'd been around for a good while, but all of a sudden people were using it, and it's like, this is bad, that's bad, life as we know it's over. Well, it's just daily part of life now. I pay my bills, and I entertain myself, and I learn all of that on the internet.
That's right. And that's funny. Like there's such an opportunity. This AI, it's been around a while. It's just now really starting. And I would say it's still, most people don't know about it.
Yeah.
Like really the majority of people. You could say ChatGPT in a room of very successful people, and I would be surprised if a third of them knew what you're talking about. Yeah. So we're still in the infant stages of this thing. Now, so when the internet kind of all of a sudden got popular, it had already probably been around for 10 years or something. Mm-hmm. So early adopters get rewarded. So if you figure that thing out early, people that figured the internet out early, well, they got rewarded in mostly monetary ways, but other ways as well. Yeah. So same thing could be true with AI or the next thing coming.
Yep.
Road bikes. What makes a good road bike?
A good road bike riding on the pavement?
Bicycle, yeah. Okay, so wait a second. Are there other ones?
There are.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about bikes a little bit. How many bikes do you have?
3.
There we go.
I have a mountain bike, I have a gravel bike, and I have a road bike. So it all depends on.
Do you care? Or do you have a favorite?
Oh, probably my favorite is my gravel, what you call a gravel bike, and it's just a bicycle that it looks like a road bike, but it's built a little bit different geometry, wider tires. You can ride on gravel roads, and so I like it because it's more versatile. My road bike, it's strictly pavement. Now the benefit, it's lighter, it's faster, doesn't have the versatility.
Yeah,
so it just depends.
Have you made a 100-mile ride?
I've not.
What do they call that?
Century.
Yeah, century.
I've ridden in the 60s. That's as far as I've ridden.
Do you want to?
I think about it sometimes. That's not
really.
Nah, for me, cycling, sometimes it's just exercise, but it's that. It's about being out and smelling the smells and seeing the sights and enjoying life, living life.
Yeah. Well, though, what makes you value? Okay, you can't go on a bike ride. I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology here, but you can't go ride your bicycle and not work your lungs and your heart and your legs and these things.
Right.
So I don't think you choose that if you don't also value that. And
I do value that.
Why?
I want to be able to live life on my terms. A day will come. Well, there's already things. There's nothing I can't do right now that want to do. I'm just not as fast at it or whatever as I used to be. And I know a day will come when some of those things I just won't be able to do. But for many, many people, it comes sooner than it has to. So that's part of it is, for example, backpacking. I love to go backpacking, or I like a good long canoe trip. If I don't take care of myself, that day will come sooner than it has to. So, and I see what happens to people who, the last 10 years of their life, kind of miserable.
Yeah.
I don't want that. Now, there's no guarantees, but I can dang sure influence the odds to a strong degree.
You bet.
And what I'm trying to do is ensure that I can live life to the end, and the research is there. You can pretty much live life to the end and then just have a very short, steep decline in death.
Yeah.
You don't have to have that 10-year stuck in bed like a lot of people have. It doesn't have to be that way for most people.
Sure. That's awesome. I totally align with that thought process. I don't think it's easy for me.
No.
Like, I don't look forward to that 5 a.m. workout every day. But
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, get up.
Yeah.
You just got to figure out some structure in which you can just make that step. And then every time I finished, I'm happy.
Me
I
too.
love it.
Those days when I was like, oh, I'd rather do anything than this workout. Yeah. I'm always glad I did it when I finish it. And then there's days when I don't feel that way, but there are certainly days that you just have to have that discipline to make yourself.
Discipline. I think it's part of what the school helps with kids these days.
Yeah.
Families are busy. My family
very
in particular is busy. My kids aren't working with me in a job setting, in a structure that I was able to. Like, I worked with my dad a lot. I worked with my granddad a lot. I worked with my uncles a lot. And I got to learn so much discipline in that. Now, sometimes it was just stay out of the way. There's some trees over there. Go climb them. Go play under them. Just whatever you do, don't get hurt and stay out of our way. We're got to get some stuff done. Okay, there were days like that. Then there's days like, this is not a huge rush. Get over here. I'm going to show you how to do this. And it might be tying clips on a fence, or it might be driving a tractor. It was so much. And then I saw Dad crawling under houses and fixing plumbing and nasty sewer and just hard stuff. I mean, he didn't want to do it, but he just said, time to do it, and just went. So kids, I think, my kids aren't getting that experience, so I'm glad there's some opportunity for them to experience that at school, in sports, in competitive UIL type things. Like you're not
commitments.
Whatever that is, discipline to work at it.
I think it's important.
Well, we covered all the bikes. Were y'all riding yesterday?
Bunny was.
Okay, I thought I saw Bunny goes. So y'all ride out kind of by our house.
She went out South 16. And then down 235.
I'm coming to the house, and she's about at the turn off, and I just kind of pull in behind her, and she's just little old tires about half an inch wide. I mean, I look at those road bikes, and I'm like, I'm not sure I could keep that thing on upright.
They're pretty. There's a lot of variety even within road bikes, but like mine, it's a racing bicycle, and it's pretty what I call twitchy. You better be paying attention, or you're going to be rubbing your cheek on the pavement.
So how much appreciation do you have for those Tour de France riders?
Well, I waited till I was about 45 for the phone call for me to come ride for them. It never came.
Never did. Then you just thought you aged out.
But yes, but it's almost superhuman, the things that they do. I don't see how they do it, because
I mean, it's wild. They're going fast.
Well, they're so fast, and they sustain it for so long. It's nothing for them to ride 150 or 175 miles a day and turn around and do it again the next day at high speed and up steep mountains, and that I might struggle walking up, much less riding a bicycle. So they're pretty amazing.
It illustrates the fun to me in life of we all can't know everything about everything, but we all kind of get these kind of passions for different stuff. Like, I know a lot about podcasting. I know a lot about mics, recorders, cameras, tripods, lights, this stuff.
Yep.
Just because I've been doing it now, and I've kind of want to get a little better. Now, most of the people I work with probably would laugh about that a little bit, because I don't needle on it a lot, because I'm more of a let's do it and figure it out along the way than I want to know everything before I start.
Yeah.
So I'm getting better all the time, but
I like to dive into things.
yeah, just jump in there, start, get going.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to not be great. Yeah, people might laugh at you, and maybe nobody cares about what you're even talking about. But if you're doing it, it will eventually.
Well, you're learning something
up
all along, and you're getting that experience, and there's no substitute for that. So
yeah, like I'll pay attention to Joe Rogan or somebody like that. I'm like, wow, cool. I like what they're doing there. Ooh, that was an interesting way to edit it. Oh, I know that wasn't done just like that. It must have been done a different way. So anyways, that's all cool. That's kind of what I like asking you about. You are passionate about bikes. You know about road bikes. You know about all
bicycles.
And then you see somebody that can use one, like those Tour de France riders, and I'm just using that as an example. There's a lot of other great races, but and you're like, wow.
Yeah,
like you really have an appreciation for how great that is.
There's, which, bicycle racing is very much a niche sport. Most people are not interested in it, and that's fine. But the nuances of it and the tactics of it, if you really understand it, it's pretty impressive, the things that they do. And it's a team sport. It's also an individual sport at times. So it's I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you bet. I've got friends that are really into NASCAR.
Yeah.
I'm personally really into rodeo and those athletes and bull riding. I never rode bulls, but man, those bulls are athletes. Those cowboys are athletes.
Yep.
It's a career now compared to when maybe I was most really actually into rodeo and doing some myself. The bull riding has turned into a real industry.
Oh yeah, it's specific training and physical training and so on and so forth, because it beats you to death.
Oh yeah, well, like
if you're not in shape, you're not going to last very long. And
it's kind of this cowboy perspective. I've had a few really successful bull rider rodeo athletes on the show, and even some of the founders of the PBR. They didn't picture it being what it is today. They just knew this thing could be something. Let's do it. So now it's blossomed into. There's a very rare one of them that's not concerned about their diet, their physical fitness. Yep. They don't smoke. They don't chew. They're athletes. Now you might like JB Mooney. I mean, he's got a cigarette in his mouth 24/7. He doesn't work out. I mean, but he can do like kind of superhuman stuff, just over years of standing on a basketball and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just fun to see some of the nuance.
Yep.
So what are you up to these days? Now you're retired. Did you sleep till noon every day?
No. I still setting my alarm. I don't want to waste my time, and still thinking it through. And I plan on returning to some part-time work this fall, but right now I'm enjoying. Like Saturday, I guess I was thinking, okay, just habit. Tomorrow's Sunday. I got to get this done because it's going to be busy at school on Monday. And I thought, oh, I don't have to go. Yeah. Last Tuesday of last week, of course, we were off Monday because of the holiday, and I was sitting on my front porch drinking a cup of coffee. Well, the school bus goes by. It's the first day of summer school, and there's kids like, oh, I got to get to work. Yeah. I mean, it was like a panic. It's like, oh, no, I don't have to do that. So it felt good. I am enjoying it. Still see a lot of the kids around town. That's one of the nice things about being in a small town. But it's kind of bittersweet. And so.
Yeah, sure. I know a lot of people are just missing you. But, to me, I don't know. I wish they'd rename retirement. Like it's just not.
I call it shifting gears.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Change of direction or
people that simply go home and sit down don't live very long. Even young people, they don't live very long. And I talked about earlier when you and I were visiting about being beneficial to society. Well, I'm looking at some things that I can do, volunteer type things that will help that I didn't have time before, but I think are important. So some of that, probably coming back to work part-time in the fall, and then I really want to focus on my physical conditioning, up the game there a little bit of traveling, love to travel, and challenge myself physically in some ways through that. And then my photography, I really want to up my game there. And so I've got some time to do that now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a great way to put it. And I feel like I want people, as part of this conversation, it's in my mind or it's in my ear right now. It feels like God is saying, yes, don't just build your life around this retirement idea.
I agree.
You got to build your life every day of being a productive member of society, going after your own possibility. Like, what are you? I think about stuff if I'm not doing something that scares me a little bit, I'm not trying very hard. Do you agree with that? Do you think about that? Is that going to be true for you in these?
Well, for me, it's very true, because one of the things I know is this. If I have started on a project and all of this, let's say it's photography, and all of a sudden I realize I haven't done anything on this project in a while, that means I'm afraid of failure.
Yeah.
Well, it's a whole lot easier to simply not do it and avoid the failure than it is to face up to that fear. Or you might fail.
Yeah.
You really might. But so that kind of thing I think is really important, and it's easy to give into that because it's safe and it's comfortable to just don't do it.
That's right.
That way you don't fail.
Sure. I mean, it's true.
And I'm prone to that. That's one of those things. And sometimes we talked about our partners, Bunny, my wife. She lets me know when I'm doing that.
Does she have a higher threshold for that, do you think? Is that partly why? Like some people just have a higher threshold, I think, for that fear of failure or ability to just understand.
Yeah. I don't know if it's that or she's just my partner in life, and sometimes we hold each other accountable, and she sees me doing that, maybe just sitting around and wasting time when she'll hear the words come out of my mouth that I want to finish this project and do a presentation, but she's not seeing the action that it's going to take to get it done. Sure. She'll point that out, and I'm glad.
Yeah.
And because I know me, I'm prone to that if I don't watch it. And so, I think that fear of failure can be pretty powerful. It can be debilitating.
Yeah, you bet. And it's kind of a crazy fear to even have, because to me, there's no failure if you're making an effort.
Yeah.
Now, there is better effort and lesser effort and all these things. And if you go to this comparison game, then that starts getting to be a big problem, because your best effort compared to somebody else's best effort in the world's eyes is less.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if that's even true.
I don't know. If you put yourself out there, you'll have critics.
Yeah.
One, there's just some people are just going to be critics, and then there may probably some validity to some of that. But it can be scary to put yourself out there. And I've got a photo project I'm actually pretty proud of, and I have finished it. And it's I've made what are called folios, and the traditional way of presenting photography is on the wall, or now on the computer screen.
Yeah.
Well, this is I still really like the physicality of things, and so a folio is an unmounted collection of photos around one subject, and this subject is local. And I don't want to say a whole lot about it yet. It's not. I'm not saying because it's something great, but I've made four folios. There's about 15 pages. 11 of those are photographs of a local subject, and I think it's pretty decent. but yet now it's sitting on the shelf, and the people that would be most impacted by it don't know it exists. Well, what good is that doing?
Right.
And so what I really need to do is with that organization is say, hey, I want to come talk to y'all, and then give it to them. And so what I'm doing right now is they're going to get copies of those folios, but and what that is, it's loose bound, and then I made out of a heavy piece of colored art paper, a covering that goes around it, and it all folds together, and it's pretty nice. But
that's scary, because you might hand it to them and they might say,
like, well, this is a piece of crap.
Thank you. See you later.
I don't know why you bothered.
Yeah, right.
And it could happen.
That's right.
But
so
it's
okay.
I kind of got off on a tangent there, I guess.
No, that's no tangent. Oh, I had this thought when you were talking about Bunny. It's probably not easy for her to tell you, hey, I heard you saying you want to do that and you're not doing it. So I love you enough to tell you that.
Yeah, because she knows sometimes I don't receive it very well. That's one of the failures of mine. It's like,
yeah, sure. But I'm telling the girls this a lot. Like, if a coach isn't coaching you, if I'm as your dad am not telling you what you can do better, it's a big illustration of me not caring.
Yeah.
And you don't want that.
Right.
So be glad somebody is taking the effort, the kind of scary moment, because it's not easy for them.
Nope.
Now, it might be for a coach in certain situations, but in at least a relationship, it's not easy to say, you can do better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So high five, Bunny. Really high five to everybody out there that's
and one of the, of course, nice things about her, Bunny, is it's done with kindness and love, and that doesn't mean it's easy to hear sometimes. Yeah. But she wants what's best for me. That's the bottom line, and I appreciate that. That's nice to have somebody like that.
That's what a partnership is.
I don't know why, but she loves me, so I'm blessed.
Okay, this is so great. I mean, I got another bunch of questions, but we already been doing this over an hour, and anybody listening has spent a long time. Yeah. I mean, time is super valuable. You got other things to do, but thank you so much for coming and talking about it.
Enjoyed it.
It is my chance to say thank you. I mean, part of inviting you to the show is to say, man, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate what you have done, what you are going to do, and I want people to hear your story.
Well, this community has blessed me, and so it's been a two-way thing.
Yep. Well, and outside of this community, like, there are people listening, have no clue who Curtis Stahnke is. They've never met you. They've never seen you. They might be in Bangladesh, but they're hearing some great stuff from a guy who I'm telling you has done super valuable things. So all they can listen to this and now apply it in their lives in some way. Or maybe they don't even know it's any good until 10 years from now. It's what I think is so beautiful. Like, I didn't know stuff Mom and Dad were teaching me was important or good until I had kids, until I've faced some of the things they've faced. And now all of a sudden those lessons are so valuable.
I'm 62, and they hit me all the time. It's like, it took you a long time.
Yeah, right. I mean, the older I get and the more experienced I get, the more I realize how little I know. Yeah. And that's the only thing I want to, when I get to heaven, I'm going to be like, dear Lord, why did you reverse that? Why couldn't have I understood that at so much younger age?
Would have saved a lot of problems, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But I think because that's the journey.
The journey, there's no substitute for the journey.
That's right.
So,
all right, everybody, go live your journey. Thanks for listening. I appreciate the time you spent here with us. And, just come back next time. We'll have another conversation I know is going to be fun for me and valuable for you if you want it to.